for performance as we watch the president depart?
Well, right now we know that the president is on Air Force One en route to Saudi Arabia, and it is something that's really interesting to see once he touches down. And I mean, what are the tweets that might come about from this? Because I mean, these have been two very much bombshell reports this afternoon with his words in that meeting with Russian officials about James Comey, calling him "quote unquote" nuts, and this new info that one of his senior aides someone in the White House there is under investigation. So I mean, this is something that we'll have to watch, and we'll see how he interacts with some of our allies and how they interact with him. Will they want to tell him, share certain information with him after reports have come out that he's possibly, you know, leaked certain things to the Russians in behind closed-door meetings? So it'll just be really interesting to see how the president interacts with folks on this trip.
Eli, you know this. These trips are punishing. There's the time difference. There's the press of the work of the job. There are briefings, no matter who you are and like it or not. This president has taken great pains all during campaign season to spend the night either at home / Trump-branded property. He has not traveled much. He's not gone overseas as president yet.
Yeah, and our reporting is that he has not been looking forward to this in recent days, that the trip feels too long to him. You know, a trip like this is an incredibly ambitious international trip. Any international trip when you're president, especially your first one, is laden with difficulty. And to hear the White House talk earlier in the week, you know, when they were dealing with damaging news stories on Monday and Tuesday, as if, you know, if we can just get to this really difficult and this high wire act of an international trip, it'll help us pivot away from where we are right now, tells you how bad things have been at home. I think initially on the trip, you know, the benefit for the president is that Saudi Arabia and Israel are two countries that are pretty invested in having a strong bilateral relationship with the United States, likely to be, you know, warm hosts to sort of roll out the red carpet and make sure that this goes well, and that, you know, it may get a little tougher, the optics, especially when the president goes to the Vatican and has a face-to-face with the Pope and then goes on to meet European leaders and leaders at the G7. I think that's where this trip gets difficult, really puts the president on a world stage alongside much more experienced leaders, and we're just going to have to see how his stamina, you know, he talked about stamina. Hillary doesn't have the stamina. I've got great stamina. This trip should be quite a test of that.
Shelby, Eli is absolutely right. It'll be all about optics from the minute we first lay eyes on him on Saudi Arabian soil. Did he get enough rest? Does he know the local customs? Has he been briefed?
And how is he going to respond to the news coverage that was unfolding while he was on the plane?
Yeah.
Right. So he's got a lot going on. There will be immense focus on the president, on Trump, and there will also be immense, you know, he will need to focus immensely as well on this trip. And I don't think you can underscore the importance of him getting away from the television, getting away from the newspapers. He won't have time to consume the news that he does on a regular basis, and that could be very helpful for him. This is a huge opportunity. He's out there visiting you know, the birthplace of Islam, the Jewish homeland, the headquarters of the Catholic Church. He wants to deliver a unifying message. All eyes will be on him. He also wants to go out there and, you know, America first. He wants to advocate for America. So that's a tough line to toe. But yeah, the spotlight will be on Donald Trump throughout this whole trip, more so than any other world leader. And he will be scrutinized no matter what he does.
And Curtis, isn't it all about unforced errors? They decided to relitigate the Western Wall in the few days run up to this trip. So each new stop kind of has its own tensions.
Absolutely, and coming out of the reports that that he possibly, you know, shared some intelligence that was from Israel with the Russians. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how he, you know, interacts with Benjamin Netanyahu there and spends time there, as well as with the EU when he goes to Belgium. I mean, that's the headquarters of the European Union, and it'll just be very interesting to see how he interacts with our allies and you know, how they interact with him and I mean, certainly they don't want to have any errors. Will he put down his Twitter account for this trip? That remains to be seen over the course of these next 8 days.
Eli, this is the lightning round. I know custom doesn't call for a staff shakeup while the boss is traveling. They've yet to adhere to custom. Is there a chance?
There's always a chance with this president. I think, you know, Reince Priebus, Sean Spicer, some of those folks their stock is not real high at this point. Unlikely that takes place during these 9 days abroad, but with Donald Trump, you never know.
Shelby, the point you raised, we kind of have to remember because we're going too fast. We've not seen the president since both of these newspaper stories dropped.
Right.
They dropped minutes after Wheels Up. So that's going to be interesting. And we also had a White House non-denial statement as they were departing.
Right. And I don't think this story is going to bed anytime soon for Donald Trump. Even if he's not responding to it on Twitter, even if he's not focused on it next week, this will be the #1 story in America next week. And that's a problem for him. And, you know, the rest of the world will be watching this too. It's not just us here in America. So I think he has brought on a huge challenge upon himself when he tweets anything about the Department of Justice, anything about Russia. Can he stay away from that? Back to my point I made earlier, he really needs to focus on this trip. He can't be a loose-lipped president, leaking classified information, tweeting aggressive things about the Department of Justice. If his staff can just keep him focused, keep him on track, keep him on message, that would be a success.
Well, we've got Stokels out there reporting they're trying to. Thank you to Eli. Thank you, Shelby Holliday and Curtis Lee. Appreciate you all joining us tonight. Coming up, the Republicans to watch by someone who is watching all of this very closely.
Are you one of the 25 million Americans living with bladder control issues and on Medicaid?